11:30 Mass. So there's the song you may have heard, I Can Only Imagine, a Christian song. Those are the only words I know to the song, which is like most songs I know. I know the main line. But I know, I'm pretty sure that it's about what is life like after death, and imagining particularly heaven. And that is the theme, a theme of the gospel today, and also the book of Maccabees. And it might be surprising to note that in the Old Testament, for the most part, there was no belief there was no life after death. That was the belief, that this life is it. And once we die, nothing more. But we hear in the gospel as well as in the book of Maccabees that, at least in the Old Testament, where they begin to express that belief that there is life after death. But the Sadducees carry on that belief of nothing after death. And that's why they present this argument to Jesus, which is, I think they call it an argument of absurdity. And Jesus answers that with the reasoning of that there will be no marrying or remarrying in the age of the world to come. Just real briefly on this, I mean, it's not that marriage is bad or that marriage isn't good in this life, but it's just a real touching on this, that the idea here is that after we die, that there will be a resurrection of the body, and also that marriage, the love that is in marriage will be even greater in heaven when we're united to God, and we will be able to love with the intensity of the married life without actually being married. It's not that we won't know our spouses won't know each other. I hope I didn't confuse you. Can't go into it, but it's completely foreign to our experience, and so I'm speaking about things that are scriptural, and I really don't want to go into that one too much. What I want to talk about more is that there is life after death, and this is a key part of the scriptures that speak about this, and what's that going to be like? So Jesus also says that human beings, those who enter into the coming age, will be like angels. Now, I've heard Christians say, and maybe it's more on a more metaphorical level, that they're referring to their loved ones who have passed away as an angel, that become an angel. But that's not what Jesus is saying here. Jesus is saying here simply that human beings are immortal like the angels. We'll live forever. But we're not going to change our nature, because by nature we are God's created beings as bodily beings. And so it goes on to say, refer to the resurrection, not simply the resurrection of Jesus. There's no specification that it's simply the resurrection of Jesus, but there will be a general resurrection of all human beings in life after death. And from our perspective, at some point, our loved ones have died, their spirit has separated from their body. But how do we logically think about this? We think about it more in terms of there will be a resurrection sometime in the future from our perspective, and our spirits will be reunited with our body, and we'll have new bodies, resurrected bodies. That's how God created us. We weren't meant for death, to be separated, and our body and our spirit to be separated. The other indication that we get from the scriptures today is, even in the book of Maccabees in the Old Testament, that there is a resurrection of the body, is that the young man says, now to be sure this is more a story about courage, but it's also about the resurrection. He says, "It was from heaven that I received these." He puts out his hands and his tongue for them to cut them off. "And for the sake of his laws I disdain them, not because they're bad, but for the sake of God's laws, and he's going to keep them rather than keep his hands. He says, from him I hope to receive them again." There's that indication that this existence as a human being, even after life, after death, is going to be bodily. And the Hebrews, the Jews, would not have thought about it any other way. In fact, whenever they speak about the resurrection, it always includes the body. This is where we get our belief. One of the places in the scriptures where we get our belief in the resurrection of the body. And just to reflect a little bit on the difference that makes in our lives. Now, it makes a difference in how we treat our bodies. How do we respect our bodies and not our own bodies, not just our own bodies, but those of others, and not even while we're living. But how do we treat someone's body who has passed, who has died, whose spirit has separated from their body? I wrote about this in the bulletin today. And how do we think about it too? How do we, what other difference does it make in our lives? For me, it gives me hope that I will have a new body someday. I've wanted a new body since I was little. When my brother, my older brother, when I wanted to wrestle him down, I couldn't because he had a stronger body than me. We would play, if you remember, the $6 Million Man. When he got injured, they said, we can rebuild him. We can make him better, faster, stronger. Well, my brother was the $12 million man. I was only the $6 million man. Plus, as I get older, I experience these aches and pains. and of course, there's so much disease, and there's so many ways that we suffer physically, and as a result of that, mentally and emotionally too as well. So I look forward to the day when we don't have that. None of that's going to be there. We'll have a new body, and we can't imagine what that's going to be like completely. We have some idea of Jesus' resurrection. He was able to pass through doors. So I know that my body's going to be even better than at my peak, say at 25 years old. Jesus was able to pass through doors without opening the door. So there's hope in that. And I think also just hope in the reality that there's more to this life than what we see, and more to what we experience on this earth. It also makes a difference in how we treat other people. As Christians, we desire to alleviate the suffering of others and to work at that, to do the best we can to help alleviate their suffering, their physical suffering as well. So, invite you to this week to consider what difference does it make to imagine, based upon our faith, based upon the Scriptures, to imagine what it's like, life after death.